Sports cars are great. Unfortunately, they're not for everybody, because even though they're very fun to drive, they're great to look at, they sound amazing, they're not the most practical things in the world. Most of them only have 2 seats, there's hardly anywhere to put anything, and let's not forget that they're ludicrously expensive. So for a lot of families, for a lot of people, you can't really afford to have 2 cars, especially when one is as expensive as a sports car. So you must be out of luck then. Well, not necessarily, because there are a slew of performance variants of ordinary cars. Sedans, which are quite exciting. BMW has the M3, Mercedes-Benz the C63 AMG, and now there's a new one from Lexus.
They call it the IS500 F-Sport Performance, and as the name suggests, it's a beefier version of the already very good-looking current generation IS. And in some ways, it's a bit old-fashioned rock and roll.
Before I explain what I mean by that, let me talk you through this car's design. Now, compared to something like an IS350 F-Sport, it might not look all that different, and that's because it's not all that different. But there are a couple of changes that are worth noting. First off, the hood is 2 inches taller, and the front fenders and front bumper were elongated to accommodate what's buried underneath, but we'll get into what that is in just a second. The result is that this car, compared to any other IS, is 1.9 inches longer. The wheels are unique to the IS500, and they're developed in partnership with Enkei, which is a brand I haven't really talked about since my import days. They're 19 inches, and they save you 6 pounds compared to the 19-inch wheels you get on a 350 F-Sport. This specific car has the optional extra wheels, which are developed by BBS, and these ones are finished in satin black. I think they look very good. Other differences, all of the trim pieces on the IS500 are blacked out where they would otherwise be chrome. This was done strictly because it's cooler. And then if you make your way around the back of the car, you'll notice that the exhaust pipes are stacked. Quite literally, they're stacked on top of each other in a quad exhaust format, much like that you find on an ISF. On the interior, the changes are actually even more subtle. So I sat in an IS350 F-Sport and kind of looked around to try to find some differences, and I found a couple, 2 to be exact. The Sport Plus mode is absent in other ISs, the IS500 has it, and also the introduction sequence, the animation that the car gives you when you first turn it on, it's actually the same animation, but at the very end it flashes up IS500. Other than that, there's not really all that much of a difference. Now, this specific car is the IS500 Premium, so it has a couple of goodies that you don't get on any other car. The aluminum machined knobs, for example, as well as the Mark Levinson Premium surround system and the Lexus N-Form dynamic navigation. I think you only get that for 3 years though, and then you have to pay for a subscription, but I wouldn't really bother with that. It's got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so just connect your phone and use your navigation there.
So on the outside, it looks very similar to the IS350 F-Sport, and inside more so, yet it has an MSRP of $59,420, making it $12,000 more. But why? Well, now we get into the old-fashioned rock and roll bit, because where the IS350 has a 3.5-liter V6, this has something a bit different.
Where most brands in the industry are ditching their larger displacement engines in favor of smaller turbocharged powertrains, when Lexus was developing the IS500, they kind of looked at that and decided, nah. And they threw in a massive, naturally aspirated 5-liter V8. No turbocharger, no supercharger, no supercapacitor, no electrical assistance of any kind. It's not a hybrid, just good old-fashioned V8 muscle. For all I know, it might even run on coal, and I like that. Now, this V8 produces 472 brake horsepower, 395 pound-feet of torque. It drives the rear wheels only, no all-wheel drive, and takes the 8-speed automatic gearbox from the RCF. All of this means that it does 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds.
Adaptive variable suspension, Yamaha rear performance dampers, and Torsen limited slip differential are also all standard.
So purely aesthetically, the IS500 doesn't really seem to justify its price point, but when you do take a closer look at the underpinnings, what it has to provide on the performance standpoint, it starts to make a lot more sense. And I think that when we take it out for a drive, which is what we're gonna do right now, it's gonna get even clearer still. So I'm in the IS500, and I know that I said that there's not a whole lot different on the interior, but that's kind of fine for me. Interiors for Lexus are really nice. And one thing that you have to consider when you compare this to some of its competition is that it comes with everything. See, if you go to BMW or you go to Mercedes-Benz and you want a C63 AMG or you want an M3, the base prices of those cars are pretty substantially higher than that of the IS500, and you still have to option out the car. They don't come with everything. The IS500, the only real option that you could choose on the configurator is the BBS wheels. Other than that, it comes with everything that Lexus has to offer. So when you consider that, it only expands the price gap between it and the competition. And it's not a slow car by any means. 4.4 seconds is very fast. And crucially, it's the only car that you can get with V8. Everything else is gonna have a 4-cylinder if you go to Mercedes, or a straight 6 if you go over to BMW. If you want that old school rock and roll V8 rumble, this is what you're gonna have to go for. And that's not a bad thing because it's a great car. At the end of the day, it's a Lexus, which means it's gonna work forever. It's gonna be super reliable. It being a V8 with no superchargers, turbochargers, hybrid power, nothing like that, it's much more simple. There's a lot less to go wrong, and that's a good thing when you're looking long-term at owning a car. But in any event, I'll flash up a quick comparison chart for you to see how this car stacks up against the competition. I have the car in Sport Plus mode right now, and the throttle response is great. The delivery of the power is very linear. The only thing I would criticize is that it's not all that loud in the lower rev ranges. So if you're driving at 2,000, 3,000 RPM, you're not really gonna get the audio sensations that you would want out of a naturally aspirated V8, especially one this big. But if you're willing to rev it out a little bit up to 4,000, 5,000 RPM, the story gets a lot better. The other thing that I'm not super thrilled about is that switching it from normal to Sport Plus doesn't make an obvious difference in how the car sounds, and I would have wanted it to be a little bit louder. But again, if you just rev the car out, then you're gonna get that sound quality. I feel like the benefits of this car are that obviously it's very practical. You don't lose any of the practicality that you get with any other IS by going for the 500. But the other thing is that it's really old school fun. It doesn't feel too technologically overwhelming, and yet it still has everything that you would want. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, lane keep assist, active cruise control, heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel. I mean, I can go on for days and days and days. It has everything that you could ever really want without feeling like it's so far into the future that it would deter people from buying it if they wanted something a little bit more old school. Some people say that this car should have come out 10 years ago and that it feels like it came out 10 years ago. And I don't know if I would agree with that necessarily. It does still feel very refined. It's just a bit more rough because you have that V8 rumble going on. So if you wanted something that was super refined and comfortable, I'd say probably go for the IS350 instead. The further we go into this electrified market for sports cars and cars in general, the more detached we get from the sensations of driving. And because that's what everybody else is doing, it's nice that Lexus is doing something a little bit different, even if it is a bit old-fashioned. The car does feel a little heavy, has to be said, but it's a luxury performance car. It's really just a luxurious muscle car to me. That's what it feels like. It feels like a luxurious Japanese muscle car. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and a big thank you to Crown Lexus here in Ontario for loaning me this IS500 to do a video for you guys. So I'll leave the regular links in the description below to their website, social media, as well as the posting for this exact car if you're interested, which is currently for sale. Otherwise, leave me a comment with your thoughts on the IS500 and let me know what other cars you want to see in future videos. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to show your support for the channel and so that you don't miss a post. But until the next video, thank you again for watching and take care.